I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Antoine is here. Ms. Bonnick?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Dr. Demas is absent with notice. Ms. Ikehurst?
Here.
Ms. Rice?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and supported. We do have, is closed session not on this one? That's on our desk?
On H.
Oh, maybe if I put my glasses on. Do we want to, where do you see it? Oh, right there. Do we want to move board discussion up? Because we won't be voting on anything in closed session.
In the last public comment.
Right, we'll move up the last public comment and board discussion prior to closed session. So can, all in favor of the agenda with those changes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Robinson for celebrations?
Yes, a couple for the board and guests who are here tonight. Coming to the end of the winter season for all of our teams, but specifically at the high school level. So we want to celebrate the varsity competitive cheer team. They actually advanced to the team regionals this year. That was this past weekend at Brighton High School, and they had a great run, but unfortunately didn't make it to the state finals this year. So congratulations to the competitive cheer team. And we've talked a little bit about wrestling in my weekly updates. So the wrestling team has just had an outstanding season, arguably the best in program history, and it's not quite done yet, but the team competition actually came to an end this past weekend. So a few weeks back, the team won the team district. We actually hosted that. In that meet, they beat Port Huron and Anchor Bay. And then they advanced to the team regional at Troy, and they defeated Dakota, who is actually kind of a long-term nemesis to our team competition runs at the end of the wrestling season. So that was a big win. That matchup was actually in the first round of the team regional, and then they beat Rochester Adams. And so that secured a spot in the team state finals. And in the MHSA team state finals, they take the top 8 teams to Kalamazoo. And so we were seeded 5th, and we had to wrestle Davison, who was the 2-time returning state champs, and we actually beat them in the quarterfinal round, advanced to the semifinals, and lost to Detroit Catholic Central in the semifinals, who I believe were the eventual Division I state champs. So a great one for the team, just a great experience for our kids and families. I want to thank Coach Callie and his staff. And we actually, so now we can say we're top 4 in Division I. We actually had 13 of our 14 wrestlers qualify for the individual state finals this weekend, which is really unheard of. There's one other team in the state, I think, that qualified that many wrestlers. So they'll compete individually to finish in the top 8 in the state. And I would imagine at our March regular meeting, we'll probably be recognizing some all-state wrestlers at that time. So congratulations to the wrestling program. Our dance team a couple weeks ago went to Florida for the Dance Team Union National Championships, and our team competed well. That's, as you can imagine, a large competition. They placed 7th in the large varsity POM division. The highlight of that is they performed so well in the preliminary rounds that they advanced directly to the finals without needing to compete in the semifinal round. So 2 of our seniors have already auditioned and made their college dance teams, which, as I'm told, is quite an accomplishment to make the team before you're even on on campus. So congratulations to the dance team. The mitttv Awards, February is CTE Awareness Month, and the Macomb CTE Administrators Association holds an annual awards ceremony and competition. So it was held February 10th at the ISD. First time back in person for a few years, which was nice. We honored 2 of our high school students and an outstanding business partner. So Ava Sanborn from our marketing pathway and Charlotte Malboeuf from our cybersecurity pathway were recognized that day. Metro Electric is our business partner of the year, and Joe Brewer, of course, is owner and president of Metro Electric. So you see some pictures there with the individuals getting their awards from a couple of the dignitaries that were there, and then the group together at the awards kind of backdrop area. So congratulations to our students and Mr. Brewer on their mitttv Awards this year. And that's all I have for celebrations for this month.
All right, moving on to presentations.
So I'd like to introduce Jason Russell, the president and founder of Secure Education Consultants. Jason is here tonight. We contracted back the end of August with SEC, as known across the state, to have another round of security assessments done at all of our facilities. So Jason probably won't share this, but I will. They're right now, I think, the most reputable safety and school safety organization in the state. They do a variety of different kinds of work, but this assessments is one of those pieces. You know, unfortunately, we continue to hear about these incidents in schools, and if it's a K-12 incident, then no matter where it is, Jason's typically on scene within an hour or two, depending on how far of travel it is. So Jason's here to kind of give an overview of what has happened, a little bit of the findings, and then we'll have a closed session later tonight so the board can ask specific questions. You know, the Open Meetings Act allows us to have this discussion in closed session because if there's specific safety and security measures that the district's going to implement, it would be best that we just don't share all of that information. So Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Secure Education Consultants, we've been around for 10 years. We're headquartered in Grand Rapids. We're a group of mainly former Secret Service agents, former law enforcement. We work with several hundred districts here in Michigan and several thousand schools across the country. We have public school clients and across the U.S. Our main service is assessments, which is what we did for Romeo. So really a lot of this came as a result of some legislation that was passed last year by the state that allowed for every public and private school in the state of Michigan to have a safety and security assessment done. So we've been working across the state trying to work with districts to finish those assessments. So talk a little bit about kind of the process of what an assessment looks like, and then give you some information on kind of some of the things that we found here at Romeo. One of the things that I'll say about an assessment is in this case, assessments are just as much about affirming that what you're doing is correct as they are about finding something wrong. We work with so many districts that, we have districts all along the gamut of well-prepared to not so well-prepared. And we found Romeo to be extremely well-prepared. And I think that's in long part due to Mr. Robinson and also the relationships that you have with law enforcement. One of the first things I did, and actually before I even did the assessments, was I came and met with the safety team and had an opportunity to kind of sit and listen to the types of things that they were talking about in the safety committee. And I was extremely impressed with what I was hearing. They were really already picking up on some of the things that we identified in the assessment and started really fixing things before we even really had a chance to finish our assessment. So an assessment is really a very deep dive into everything that touches safety and security. So we're not just looking at the physical security, we're looking at policies, procedures, equipment, training, really everything. Also looking at kind of relationships with law enforcement, your security, and you have school resource officers, Macomb County, and also obviously Romeo Police. So we examined every single school site. We sat down with administrators at each location, had a conversation about individual sites. what happens at those sites in terms of safety and security, talked about equipment, training, all those things. And then we toured each facility, and our consultants are, as they're speaking with administrators, they're making notes on anything that they observe. And then at the end of that, we put together a report, which is what we will go over tonight in the closed session. We do that in a closed session because certainly we don't want to share any potential gaps or weaknesses. You don't want to broadcast those. But what I will say is there are some districts that we go to where these assessments are, I can find, 50 pages of issues. And then there's some districts where we have to get really nitpicky because they're doing almost everything correct. And this certainly fell into that second category where really all the safety and security elements were really well thought out. The things that we did find, which are usually minor, by the time we actually went through the report, a lot of those elements were already being addressed and fixed. So what we try to strive for a district to do is not just take the report and sit on it. We want them to actually put those things into action. It usually doesn't happen before we actually go over the report, but in this case, as we were kind of having conversations with administrators and with the SROs and with your safe ed folks and sharing with Mr. Robinson and his team, they were already actually implementing recommendations before we had even actually finalized the report. So we were extremely impressed with the district. I had several of my top consultants up here that have vast amounts of school experience, and everybody to a person was very impressed with what the district is doing. You will see in the report that we go over tonight, there are some kind of overarching recommendations, but they're very minor in terms of impact and what the district needs to do moving forward. So once again, appreciate the opportunity to work with the district, and certainly I think one of the things that I always stress, the reason I started this company is because I'm a parent, and I really wanted to make schools safer for my own kids. And the standard that I set for every one of our districts is, by the time we leave, I want that district to be a place that I would be, comfortable sending my kids to. And really, you far exceeded that standard, and really have done a very nice job. And kudos to Mr. Robinson, kudos to your SROs and your safe ed folks, and really administrators from every level were very knowledgeable. Sometimes we have a hard time getting information in districts, but it was very open information sharing, and we were very impressed with the district.
So I want to take the opportunity to recognize a few folks who are on our district school safety team. Jason talked about sitting in on one of our meetings. So Mr. Murray sits on the team. He represents the elementary level. Chris Storm, our operations director, is on the team. Officer Bowers here, our middle school SRO. Gary Gamble, our safe ed site supervisor. So they're on the team, in addition to Mr. Ellis from the high school and Mr. Emile from the middle school. So we meet monthly and we navigate things, and times we're reaching out for input and times we're just trying to get things done. So I would also remind the board, we did a series of these assessments back, little less than 3 years ago with the help of Macomb County Emergency Management. So we have appreciated the fact to kind of have two different sets of eyes, and a little different format to the assessment so that we can just assure our schools in that. We'll get some more specific time with the board and Jason in our closed session tonight, and then publish a kind of a more of an overview of the report to the public. So the other thing that SEC has done is they've given me building-specific reports, and I'll be sharing those and going through them with the principals in the next couple weeks after our time with the board tonight. So Jason, thank you, and more to come before you leave tonight.
Thank you.
All right. That's our presentation for this evening.
All right, moving on to consent action, which includes our general fund bills, financial reports, wire transfer, purchasing card expenditures, and the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
I did not hear who moved. You did. Ms. Rice, supported by Mr. Connor. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have some informational updates under communications. Are you going to talk about this one, or? Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
So I just want to make sure, the end of last week, I forwarded a memorandum to the board in my weekly update with reference to some priority areas for this year. And then we also got an announcement of the annual MISD budget hearing, which isn't until April, but it's always good for us to be in front of getting that on the calendar and making sure we have representation at their presentation. So we'll work to do a resolution at our April meeting, and this is, I think, a couple weeks before that.
So Chris will be attending as our treasurer, and then if someone has that date open and wants to hold it on their calendar as an alternate, should something go on, so just let me know.
We've
Committee?
had 2 committee meetings
Yeah.
since our last regular meeting, so.
And did I hear, Catherine, were you going to do curriculum? Or no, Rachel was doing curriculum?
I can.
Okay.
I wasn't given, I can read it here. Let me-
That's okay. We'll switch to facilities while you're grabbing
Okay,
that,
yep.
if that's easier. So facilities met earlier this week.
Yep, facilities met earlier this week. Myself, Ms. Bonnick, and Mr. Young were in attendance, as well as some administrators from the district. And we talked about a number of items, and a number of them are also part of resolutions this evening, so we'll be hearing more about that. But there's some technology network switches that we're going to be purchasing to replace district-wide, and we're going to be using some federal funding to help support the purchase of that. About 50% of the cost will be covered from that. We got an update on the transportation building and where we're at with that, and that's moving along fine. We got an update on the doors for Romeo Middle School, the doors and the lockers that are currently in progress of being installed. And then we talked about new construction at Hamilton Parsons, Indian Hills, and the Croswell project. The renovation of the Romeo Middle School cafeteria. It was quite the meeting. And then we talked about STEM projects that are coming up, in Group 2 projects, which are the STEM additional buildings, additional places for that, as well as some varsity and softball, baseball fields. We were given an update on the sinking fund as far as our expenditures for the HVAC controls and the equipment for that, and the domestic hot and water heaters at Roseville High School and Romeo Middle School. So that was,
You meant Romeo High School.
yeah, did I?
You said Roseville.
I did, I'm sorry.
It's hard for
I
him to
was
leave
trying-
his day job.
I'm sorry.
We're helping out.
Yeah, we were sharing our bond
Sharing,
funds, you know. Good neighbors to the north.
That's sweet.
Mike, on the switch, how much is it on the federal funding?
About 50% of I believe it's a little bit over $700,000.
700,000?
Yes,
But 50% of that is covered in E-rate.
right.
I was just asking.
Yep, it's in the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
All right, for curriculum, we met last week, and there was quite a few things that we will also see in the resolutions, but at the top of your minutes here that you were emailed, there were 3 new middle school courses that were discussed. I don't want to steal the thunder of Mrs. McFarland, but green architecture, media broadcasting, and some additional drama classes. And then looking at the course guidebooks for the high school, some updates were made just for some terminology, things that were changed with the titles of classes, and to also reflect the change in requirements for credits starting with the class of 2024. We'll have an additional credit or 2 for graduation. Also updated titles for the pathways within the academies, just to sort of reflect what they actually do there. So nothing major, just more of a a housekeeping issue with that. Additional things that Mr. Murray talked about were the fourth grade pilot for the literacy program, and just kind of explained to us some of the reasoning behind that, moving from a balanced literacy approach to more of an intentional thing with trade books and vocabulary. And then also gave us just an update on February 1st, professional PD, what they did at each level. I know it seems odd that already next week we have another one of those. So just an update on that with different levels, what they did with that. And also just all of the things coming up in our district with registering for next year and scheduling for next year. So that's that time of year when all those things begin.
Thank you.
Any questions for the curriculum subcommittee?
I do have one question. Number 3D, the high dosage tutoring update. I was wondering, is this available for all the students? How does that work? Is this the appropriate time to ask this question, or should I wait?
No, it's probably the appropriate time.
Wrong one. There we go. So high dosage tutoring is available for students at the elementary level at this point. We have a partnership with the ISD to provide training and supports. We had 6 teachers in our round 1, I'll say. That was a 10-week cycle. And then we are in the very near future, going to add 5 more. And so essentially what happens is we target tutors, they get trained, and then they work with building administration and support staff to ID kids, and then reach out to those families to set up a tutoring schedule. It's mandated that it's 10 weeks, 3 hours a week, and 1 hour in duration. And so we can take as many kids as we can find folks that want to go ahead and do the tutoring. Yeah.
Is there a possibility for a parent or guardian to enroll their child if they feel that they would benefit from that, if there's room?
I would say that's a conversation that you'd have with the building administrator. I mean, they're using the data, our screener data and the like to ID kids. And so, but that could be a conversation that a parent could have with a building principal if they weren't contacted but feels like there's a need.
And is this covered under the ESSER funds for the allocation for learning loss?
This
Is
was
part of that?
covered. Yeah, our additional time grant. So that's not ESSER, that's a
not
separate
ESSER.
grant, yep, from the state.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Academic Services Educational Goals Mid-Year Update.
Good evening. So this is year 2 of the required legislation that we update by the first board meeting in February about the K-12 educational goals. And we will be presenting our fall 2022 NWEA data as our baseline data. We'll be back in June with our spring data, which will begin in May for most of our grades. So we'll be able to see growth. So we wanted to present the baseline data as well as the goals. Sure. So our intermediate school district, the ISD, helps us navigate some of this legislation. So the 21 school districts, for most of us, the goals are similar. So we have to have a reading goal and a math goal. And we have to identify what we're going to do to try to meet the goal of showing growth on the NWA MAP growth assessment. Something different this year that I'll share with you is our 11th and 12th graders are taking it as well. So each building sets our own kind of strategies. These were common strategies that we have across all of our buildings. So obviously using a variety of strategies and other assessments besides NWA to support mastery towards the standards, and continuously having staff analyze data. So at the elementary buildings, we have what we call CAS meetings once a week, where grade level teachers can talk about instruction, curriculum, and data. And at the middle school and high school, we have those SLCs, small learning communities. So there's time built into the the daily schedule for once a week for teachers to be talking about kids. So you'll see the same kind of language for math as well. So in June, we'll bring you whether we've made growth in all of the groups that we'll talk about in math and reading based on the NWEA. So I wanted to give you just an overview. So as I said, this year we added grades 11 and 12. Last year, we were using just our own local data source. So this year, Mr. Oswald and I talked, and we felt it was best to have something that was calibrated and verified as a quality assessment instead of us trying to redo assessments. So we added grades 11 and 12. Our fall 2022 NWEA scores were slightly higher than last fall's. So we're not presenting that data to you tonight, but we've looked at that, and our fall data this year was higher than it was last year. Math and ELA teacher leaders, so I have subject area teams where there's a representative from each building in math and a different rep for ELA. We've dug into this data, particularly the group data, the subgroup data, and our ALT, our administrative team, has also dug into that data as a team, and then they've continued to dig into that data in their building. So building teams are currently, we just finished the winter window, which is not mandated by law. It's only fall and spring, but we give the winter assessment as well. They are digging into that data to calibrate support for students. So students that may have been put in support in the fall, this would be some progress monitoring data that they could say, yes, this intervention is working, no, it's not, or oops, we've got some kids that weren't in this round, we need to now include them. Our spring window runs from May 1st to May 19th, and yes, it's the same time MSTEP is running, but our schools do a good job of trying to schedule and making sure that there's breaks and things like that. And as I said, we'll give an end-of-the-year report at the June board meeting. So something new this year in the law is we have to present district-level data now. Last year, it was just building-level data. So I'm not going to read everything to you. You have the comprehensive charts and things at your seat. But you can see the kind of, this is where we're at right now, K through 12. And I want to remind grades kindergarten are also young fives. And these are students who took the NWA. So you might look at the number and say, oh, we must have 366 first graders. Well, that's how many took the fall NWEA. So you can kind of see what our average RIT score is in the fall for math and reading at each grade level. So again, in June, you'll see fall to spring, and hopefully we see each grade level has grown. That is our goal. You can notice 11th and 12th graders, the numbers are a little lower because some of the students did not take it. But it's enough of a quantity of students that we can make some assumptions about that grade level. There's also kids that are in accelerated, courses, AP courses, that didn't take the NWA in 11th or 12th grade. So,
Mrs. McFarland, can I
yeah.
ask a question? Is that probably more representative of the kids that are in just straight English 12,
Yes.
English 11?
English 11, probably senior math, not
Okay.
not AP stats, not AP calc.
Okay.
If there's in algebra 2 in 12th grade. So
Yep.
those are our kind of students that are on the path towards the Michigan Merit Curriculum courses, I guess would be a good way to say it too.
I would also remind the board, we talk about this sometimes when it comes to testing at 11th and 12th grade, that they're bright kids, they're very intuitive, and they assess whether the assessment really has any value to
Yes.
them. So when an SAT is important to get you admitted to college,
Yes.
that probably has a little bit more urgency than an NWA
Yeah, the
math
12th grade reading
assessment,
NWA really
so,
didn't matter to many students, as you can see that score.
Right. There's no way for us to gauge through the mouse how much they're taking it serious and trying, but we encourage and do the best we can. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Besides grade level, we also have to report on subgroup data. So you'll see a similar report for every level. So you'll see the grades within that band, and you'll see these groups of students. So when we look at mode of instruction, we have either fully in-person or fully remote. You may go, we only have 13 kids in RVA. No, we only tested 13 students in RVA that are K-8. So we did not test the 9th through 12th graders in RVA because many of them do not come into our buildings to test, and you can't necessarily test NWA remotely. So remember, these numbers are kids that actually took the fall NWA. So then we go and break it into our English learners, those that are identified as English learners, those that are not, and then you can see that pattern throughout. So economically disadvantaged, not, male, female, special ed, with an IEP or not special ed, and then we have the race and ethnicity categories. For those of you that weren't here at the presentations last June, any group less than 30, we do not report that data out on. So that's why with the 13 fully remote and the 3 American Indian or Alaska Natives, you don't see any score. Because we wouldn't publicly produce that. Schools can see that information about those students, but we would not publicly present that data. Before I hand it over to Mr. Murray, are there any kind of high-level questions about the report yet? All right.
All right, thank you. Looking at our elementary level data, Ms. McFarland pretty much hit upon a lot of, what this looks like in terms of what's required and what's there. I know the board has in their packet all of this information, and it will be published on our website as well. But we'll use Amanda Moore as our example and then just kind of zip through the rest of them as we move into middle school and high school. What you can see here, obviously, is the grades, the number of students who were tested, and the average RIT score for math and reading. Really what this boils down to for us is, here's subgroup information, page 1, page 2, is looking at the information in-house more granular than you see here and making decisions about what we do to support kids who are struggling, right? We can use some of this demographic information as well to notice trends. But you might wonder, what does that support look like, right? We talked about high dosage tutoring. We talked about, or we haven't talked about, but we do have math and reading intervention staff at all of our elementary schools. AVMR trained teachers, which is advanced math recovery. We have about 50 teachers that are trained in that, a bevy of them at the lower L level, which is awesome because early intervention is obviously key. We have web-based applications that students can engage with, such as Fast Forward, Reading Assistant Plus, IXL, Map Accelerator. Am I going too fast? I'm sorry. Okay. Fast Forward, Reading Assistant Plus, IXL, and Map Accelerator, which is a pilot. We don't know if we'll continue on with that or not, but it's math-based, tied to NWEA. And this is all in addition to having time dedicated every single day at all of our buildings and all of our classrooms for teachers to support students who are struggling as well in Tier 1 and Tier 2 intervention. So, like I said, Amanda Mork is kind of the template. I'll zip through the rest of the schools and take any questions if you have them. It'll take me a second here because there's many slides for 5 schools. Questions? Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about an opportunity that our intermediate school district offered districts this year around special education data usage. Mrs. Selden, our special ed director, and I met with the ISD special ed director in the spring last year, and he said, hey, there's an opportunity. Would you like to bring a team and work through some data protocols that the Michigan Department of Education has consulted with national experts for? Of course, I'm a data nerd, bring it. So we went in October, and it was a much different way to look at data, and we noticed that there was a trend of identifying students who were English learners with a learning disability. We were twice as likely to do that based on the data that the ISD had collected from state data. So we invited Washington Elementary, a small group from that building, special ed teacher, first grade teacher, the English language acquisition teacher, Mrs. Walker, and the principal, to future data usage teams. So they're really digging into the data to try to be really proactive about how do we support students earlier in K-1 who are identified as English learners who may have a break in their education. They may go away for a little bit, and then when they come back, how can we catch them up so we don't necessarily identify them with a learning disability in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. So this data helped. Our NWA data helped as group data, group data, subgroup data, to see there was a discrepancy, but the ISD also helped support it. So it's been a pretty cool process. We're not done yet, but I might have that team come and talk to you a little bit about what they did. So now Romeo Middle School, same idea. Obviously, there are only 3 grades in 6th, 7th, and 8th. You can kind of see where we were in the fall. And again, we'll compare where we are after the spring assessment they take in May. And then you can kind of see the groups of students. So you can see they had 12 of the 13 kids. We have one in elementary. And you can kind of see, as we go through these, where are some gaps occurring with some of these students, and then how can we react immediately with some of our support staff. So at Romeo Middle School, we have a reading specialist, we have a language acquisition teacher, and we have a math interventionist. So we have those 3 support staff that are certified teachers that can take students into their classes. And we also have lots of paraprofessional support now. We've added time to them through the use of our ESSER dollars. So they're there all day versus only a couple hours. So they're able to get into classrooms and push in or pull out. So this data is really important for our schools to have, to kind of look at that and say, where are the kids now? Winter data will give them, it's working, we need to make some adjustments. So then here you'll see, I put all the grades on the one slide, and then you'll see 9th grade separate from the 10-12 data. So here's just 9th grade subgroup progress. And then you'll see here 10th, 11th, and 12th graders are grouped in these numbers. Any questions from the board? I know it's a lot.
So one of the things that I think is important is there's a lot that goes into pulling this data, and we lean on the intermediate school district to pull that for us. So part of that leads to the sequence of timing of when we actually have the data to get it in the hands of the folks at our building and begin to work with it. So, the state requires us to present the baseline. We really, in the future, would love to be able to do this at, I think realistically, our November meeting. However, we have to get the data first, and then, of course, give it to ourselves internally before we begin to present it. So the requirement, Mrs. McFarland, is by the February.
First board meeting in February.
Yeah, so,
We
so
only have
we
one.
hope in the future to just get a little closer to the fall. But I think this will look different when we present in June, because you'll see more side to side.
And last year, I think we presented in January, and you just had a lot on the docket in our January board meeting this year, so we chose to do it in February. So I'm just going to roll right in.
Yes.
Academic services update. I believe I updated the board in January, and I believe the curriculum committee as well. We are knee-deep into the book review process. We're about halfway done with the books that, the titles that we had. And we are meeting, I believe, this week. Yes, it's the first week in March. So yes, we're meeting this week to hopefully finish up the other books that we weren't able to. We spent almost 2 hours, 2.5 hours. That's a long time with a full day of work, with kids also being there and teachers. So we decided to break and pick it up in round 2. I also wanted just to update the board. We got our admin regulations updated to align with the media review process guide that you approved in January or December? December. We had legal counsel look at it, and he got those back to us, so we'll be giving you those updates soon. I think that's all we had. Oh, March 1st, this Wednesday, is Professional Development, no school for students, but our teachers will be actively involved in learning.
So our subcommittee report talked a little bit about the technology project. We present those type of bond projects at facilities, and Mr. Smith is here from IDS Tech, and Mr. Nelson is here, so you guys want to step up to the podium. I just want to make sure there's no questions that we can help clarify prior to moving to the action portion of our agenda. So, Mark, anything you want to share with the board other than just taking their questions?
No, I mean, I've updated the subcommittee a couple times. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Nelson, briefly, just for the public's understanding, and some that may not be familiar with a network switch, and especially the dollar amount. Mind you, we did get 50% of that covered federally. But could you just break it down in terms of what this project will look like and why we're replacing it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The network switches currently in place were installed in the summer of 2013. So a network switch handles all network traffic for every endpoint that's plugged in district-wide. So think of every computer, every phone, every wireless access point, digital signage, menus, anything that's plugged into the network, the switch handles that traffic. There's about 150 total in this project. The head end is at the Romeo Middle School, which all of the buildings terminate there, and then from there, the network traffic goes to the MISD. So, like I say, there's about 150. This is about $773,000, I believe, for the total cost. We are a 50% E-rate reimbursable district, so we'll get about half of that back. It will be slightly less than half because the administration building and the maintenance building are not eligible. So it'll be 48% or 47% reimbursed by the federal E-rate program, which is managed by the FCC.
Thank you very much.
Questions? All right. Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen. Next in my report is just to highlight a couple things from construction. Once again, we got Mr. Antoine's subcommittee report, but on the action agenda tonight is the interior door and hardware replacement project. So, Mr. Storm, you want to just give us the quick 2 cents, since I think you're going to get that question anyways, of what facilities are impacted and what we're doing.
Sure. So I'd like to start out by saying, from when I started here, we were finishing up all of the elementary projects with new doors and new hardware, which was great timing on our part. So in the process over the last 18 or 19 months, what we've tried to do is try to get all of our buildings up to that same district standard. So with this project that's on the agenda tonight, that would get all of our buildings in a standardized system where they all would have functioning hardware with the quarter turn lock and the indicator, which is very good. And a lot of that's made possible because of our facilities bond and sinking fund, and now the Safety 97 grant. So that would get all of our buildings up to date. This building in particular needed doors as well as the middle school, so we'd be in really good shape for doors and hardware, the completion of that project.
So this might be an example of things that Mr. Russell and his team were thinking about, and we were already on the job planning to get ourselves to that single turn standard with an indicator. Any questions on that piece of it? All right. Mr. Bollinger, you want to give us the quick update? We're anxiously awaiting the transportation building, and so let us know kind of where we're at.
Absolutely. Good evening. To start off with, we're starting to bring the permanent mechanical systems online. We have factory startup occurring this week on multiple systems. We also have the flooring installations in progress and actually have gotten to a point to where, starting this week, we'll be bringing in the office furniture and getting that new furniture set up in preparation for inspections to start next week, so that we can start moving towards final inspections and closer to that occupancy to move out of the existing facility and into the new facility.
So I would just remind the board and the public that, we've stayed operational throughout building the new one. So once we move into the new house, we have to remove the old house. And that's gonna take some doing because we still have to be operational in the yard. So we're not quite sure the date, but I've been telling our folks, our friends from Barton Mel and our folks, we will have a grand opening for this facility because some of our drivers on staff have heard about this happening for a long time.
Long time.
And it's finally come to fruition. We then have work to do, so we just have the first grade of asphalt on that. So I would probably see it not really being until June, and we're done busing kids before we actually put the final grade of asphalt on and restripe it and all of that. So there's still some work to be done, but I'm really hopeful that, by spring break, and that might just be the right time for us to move to when we're not busing kids every day. So anyways, thank you for that update. And then the last thing is we've kind of switched back to design mode. And so we'll start the process again for this next coming year. And then this, we have two specific design committees that we're getting some representatives, or as I call end users, involved. So the design for the new STEM and robotics facility that will be on the middle school campus, we put a committee together for that. And then also for the varsity baseball and softball fields. So probably a series of 2 or 3 meetings up front for them. And those will happen March, April. They'll meet. The architects will take some time to take what they've heard and put it into a draft product for the committee to review. So we're looking forward to moving those decisions forward. When we talk about the renovations at Amanda Moore, Washington, and Washington, they're kind of replicating what we did in Group 1. And those teachers and those people have been a part of those conversations, even though their project or their new additions weren't till Group 2. That's our construction. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
I just wanted to ask, pertaining to the grand opening, of course, that's going to be a public invite.
Yeah, the biggest people, the honored guests will be our transportation drivers, and so we will probably do it, either after they come back from morning runs or just before they go out to afternoon. But we'll make sure we're there, and then that's really not a place we want a lot of traffic when we're in school, but certainly something that we can get people the opportunity to see, when we're not in school. The last thing I just wanted to remind the board is we have begun our process at the leadership level for the district to set our priorities. And we've talked about how this is a little bit more aligned because we now have a strategic plan. But we have a series of conversations. We'll meet again tomorrow morning, and we look forward to sharing those with the board at the March workshop meeting. And that's my report for today.
All right, I did not receive any public comment on anything we're voting on this evening. Making sure. So we'll move on. May I have a motion for Employee Services Resolution 13, which is our personnel update?
Motion.
By
Motion.
Eichhorst,
Second.
supported by Rice. Are there any questions or concerns? No, we're having public comment. We have 2 times on the agenda. The first time is things that we're voting on right now, and then it's the time after. And I have cards for those. So if you're planning to speak, you fill one of these out. No problem. All right. Personnel update, no questions or concerns. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is Business Services Resolution 14, which is our CTE technology equipment for the marketing pathway.
Motion.
Moved by Antoine, supported by Connor. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is Business Services Resolution 15, which is CTE technology equipment for mechatronics.
Motion.
Moved by Antoine,
Support.
support by Rice. Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is Academic Services Resolution 16, which is the RMS and RHS course guidebook. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Ikorst, supported by Young. Any questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is Academic Services Resolution 17, which is the RMS new courses.
Motion.
Moved by Young, supported by Connor. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next one is our Technology Resolution 18, which is the network switch replacement, which is covered with E-rate funds as well.
Motion.
Moved by Antoine,
Support.
support by Rice. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Facilities Resolution 19, which is the door and hardware replacement project. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Support.
Moved by Rice, supported by Connor. Questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move up our public comment.
You gotta get board discussion for the good of the district and,
Well, I thought I moved that under the public comment.
okay, all right.
So I have Susan Heyer, impact of COVID-19. And just a reminder for everybody, we do keep track, it's 3 minutes, so we'll kind of let you know when your 3 minutes is coming to a close. And Sue is a retired Board of Ed member, so haven't seen her back in a while.
Way retired. Grandma now.
Well, the sad part is I served with you, so
Ooh, okay.
crazy.
Okay. Good evening. On January 23, 2023, Romeo Community School Board member Catherine Rice was interviewed by Living Exponentially host Eileen Tesh, who identified Ms. Rice as a member of a school board. During this interview, Ms. Rice stated, quote, "During the COVID mandates, we have lost 12 years of education," end of quote. Ms. Tesh then asked Ms. Rice, quote, "How did you come up with that ratio?" End of quote. Ms. Rice responded, quote, "That is a universal sort of truism," end of quote. Ms. Rice went on to say she found this information from Googling the topic. First, I would appreciate an explanation of what a universal sort of truism is, and additionally, I have some questions. One, do Ms. Rice's words accurately represent the beliefs of this entire Board of Education? Two, do Ms. Rice's words accurately represent the beliefs of this entire administration of our school district? Three, will her views on this universal sort of truism be reflected in her votes? Four, what sources did Ms. Rice use to form her opinions? Five, please explain, for example, how a fourth grader can be 12 years behind in their education. Six, if Ms. Rice's words accurately represent the position of the school district, is there a plan to assist our students in recovering the 12 years of lost education? Seven, is there confidence that our senior class can reach the goal of recovering the 12 years of lost education prior to their June graduation? Eight, rather than doing a Google search, what district-related data will be used by the district to reach that particular goal regarding the senior class and other grades? And will the district require additional funds to reach this goal? At the end of the day, I am aware we all have our First Amendment rights to express our opinions. However, when expressing that opinion publicly, this district has proven that there is an expectation that individuals who represent Romeo Community Schools in any capacity should express their opinion cautiously. Otherwise, expressing one's opinions could be costly. Who on this board is ultimately responsible for determining who is expressing their First Amendment right or crossing the line? Recent history in our school district demonstrates that responsibility is actually in the wallets of the taxpayers. Thank you for allowing me the time to present my questions. May I leave a copy of these questions for you?
Please do.
Okay.
You
thank
can just give them to Antoinette right there.
Just one, or I make copies for everybody?
You can leave them all there and we can grab them. All right. Moving on, I have Donald Eason.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board this evening. My name is Donald Eason, and I'm here really to represent myself as a minister of the gospel of Christ. I gave a presentation a few weeks ago as it relates to education, and a couple of school board members were there. A couple of Romeo school board members were at the presentation. It was at a church.
I believe only one was there, just
Okay,
to
only one?
clarify.
Okay. Well, one was there, and they've been under fire because of my presentation. They have no idea what I'm going to say. So I'm here to say that they are not responsible for what I said. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I am concerned about what's going on in our educational system. One, the whole idea of the homosexual agenda, homosexual marriage. God made man, this is according to the Bible, in his image. He made male and female. There is no in between. I was at a church preaching, teaching what the Bible says, and I will always stand on that. God also created marriage. He made marriage between a man and a woman. And I stated that in my presentation. And anything else that is called marriage is not what God created. It's created by someone else. And so also, I spoke about evolution from Darwin. The title of his book is The Origin of the Species by Means of Natural Selection, Preservation of Favorite Races in the Struggle for Life. I call that racist, and it is. That is not from God. God created one race, it's the human race. We're all in this together. So I'm simply defending the position that everything that I said I stand by is true, that the school board member that was present, it is not on them on what I present. I presented to a Christian audience. Unfortunately, we live in a world that whatever is presented goes out to the entire world. And that's okay with me. I believe that you as school board members got on the school board to help protect our children. I want to believe that you got on the school board to help support our parents. I quoted something from Hitler. Hitler was never married. Hitler never had children. And he said that the children was his, that the children in the public school system were his. I quoted exactly what he said. The reason for that quote is some of the things that are going on in our current school system makes it appear that they're trying to take the children from the parents. And as a minister, as a parent, I wanted to inform the parents in our district and whoever heard it on what is going on in our school system. But again, I would hope that the majority would be in favor of protecting our children. The school system is here to assist the parents. And when you start hiding, if Johnny says that he is Jane and you hide that from the parent, that is not assisting, that is taking. If Susie says she is Sam and you hide that from the parent, that is not assisting, that is taking.
You
And
have
so we're
3
here
minutes.
to assist. Okay, we're gonna close it up.
Yeah.
I'm just here to support the school board. I'm here to support especially the parents in the raising of their children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Donald, are you a parent? Are your grandkids in our district? When you said our district, are you talking Romeo? Or? Oh, got it. Okay, all right. Next, I have Jimmy Sam Woodard. So same thing,
Lord,
Al.
I'm so glad you give me the opportunity to speak. And it's so heartening to see all of these parents and community members here interested in what's going on in the school. I'm here because I'm concerned for our children. I have raised 2 children and still working on raising them. You know how that is. You don't get over that. But I'm concerned because of what we find in our school libraries. As you know, most of our library books are funneled through the same source. And we just came back from a meeting 2 weeks ago with the Chippewa Valley Schools School Board. There is a list of at least 110 books that are in their 9th grade through 12th grade that are so salacious, they're so pornographic, that it's a shame to even know that they're in that system. And I don't know that you have those books. I pray to God you don't. But as they said, they have a group that filters those out. Well, these were certainly not filtered out. And there's a book called Push it's called Adult Level, but it's in the high school. And it says Daddy pulled out his whatever with his 7-year-old daughter, and he did such and such, and they did so and so, and they enjoyed this and that. That's a book. It's in the school. There's another book called Lucky. Contains obscene excerpts involving sexual adultery, battery, sexual activities. It's available at the Chippewa Valley 9th Grade Center and Chippewa Valley High School. And it's all of the sexual activity, the things that you would call immoral, the things that you would cause someone to be arrested for if they were to come up to your child and begin to present them with this material, and yet that is in the schools. And I just want you to ensure that it's not in your libraries. This is not book burning at all. This is protecting our children from what they are not able morally, they're not able legally, they're not a mature level to be able to accept this. We're dealing with a young lady right now near our house. And she encountered this kind of thing when she was young, and she's 57 years old, and she is so messed up in the head. She is emotionally a wreck because of what happened to her about 40 years ago. There's one called Sold. It's explicit, aberrant sexual activities, including rape of a minor, prostitution, explicit violence. There's one called The Sun and Her Flowers. If you ladies know what I mean, and there's all of the pictures that go along with that. There's a Queer, a Graphic History by Meg John Barker and Jules Shield. It contains alternate sexualities, alternate gender ideologies, controversial racial and social commentary with pictures to go along. This is for our children. We're talking about 9th grade and up. If someone comes along the street and gets a hold of your child and tries to present them, and you're going to resent that highly, and yet in your school. And the comment was made, well, all the parents have got to do is just write a little note and say they can't read those books. But, you know, the parents don't get into the school library. How do they know what all those books are?
So that you're at 3 minutes. So if you
Okay,
can.
and I hope that you look at your school library because our children, their lives are at stake. Thank you so much. Bless you.
Thank you. Moving on to board discussion for the good of the district. Anyone have anything? All right. We are going to be going into closed session for the purpose of security measures, and we will be returning but not voting on anything. So appreciate everyone's attendance tonight. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to go in closed session.
Or, I'm sorry, motion to go into closed session.
Motion.
Antoine,
Support.
support by Connor. I need a roll call.
Mr. Antoine is yes. Ms. Bonnick?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Eichhorst?
Yes.
Ms. Rice?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. This must.
Did we get everybody?